At AIA Australia, we're making healthy living easier by incentivising your clients with rewards, like discounts on their gym memberships, eligible flights and insurance premiums with AIA Vitality. It's no wonder that we've reduced client lapse rates by 50% and helped grow client engagement. To find out more, contact your AIA CDM today.
Great to be with you. We got a couple of guys. Hey, Leon, Reese. Just opening up now. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome, Erin. Great to have you with us today.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So today we've got Erin Truscott, and she's from GCA Financial, based out of Brisbane. Erin's going to be sharing with us a bit about what she's been doing in her business. Erin's background is in practice development, where she was for about 8 years before stepping into advice. And she was the winner of the AFA's Rising Star Award last year. So I think it's pretty fair to say that she's navigated that change pretty successfully. Firstly, I just want to say a big thank you to our partners for these events, AIA, and their support for making this sort of stuff happen. So thanks to Mel Crawford and the team. And just a reminder for everyone watching in, if you're not already involved in the Facebook group, jump online and check it out. Our legend Jackie has just shared the link in the chat box there. And it'd be great to get you involved. There's a bunch of great advisors in there sharing ideas. And for anyone in Sydney as well, we've got our event coming up Beyond the SOA next Thursday. So if you haven't got tickets already, you can check them out. We'll put up the link in a second. Just for everyone watching in as well, as we go through the session, we've got a few questions to ask Erin today, but there's a chat box there. You can just hit the chat button at the bottom of your screen. If you've got any questions as we're going through, feel free to type them into the chat box, and we're going to come to questions at the end. And yeah, we'd love to hear from you guys and hear what you want to know from Erin as well. So welcome, Erin. Great to have you here.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us today. I suppose to get things started, can you just give us a bit of your background and how you got into advice, what your business looks like, and what sort of advice you provide?
Yeah, sure. So my background it basically started in business development, then moving to practice development. So started on the investment side and then moved to more the business development side, so looking after, growth and strategy style stuff with financial advisors, with the licensee that I'm now an advisor under. And through that relationship building with those practices, it sort of became very clear to me about, I guess, the value that you can provide as an advisor to your clients, and just how special that really is. So I sort of got this hunger for it about sort of 12 months into being a practice development manager, and then it was sort of about learning as much as I could. And luckily I was working with a practice, GCA Financial, which is now the place I call home for the rest of my career. And they had an opportunity come up for a new advisor, and then 1 year later I became a shareholder in that practice. So I guess for me it's been more around seeing the value of what I could be doing next, and then taking that leap in with a business who I have really great mentors which is awesome. So yeah, the business strategy and development stuff is great and helps you in dealing with people, but I've been really lucky to get into a practice that now helps me develop on the advice side as well. And also I've been able to help them develop in a lot of areas as well. So it's been a really great fit.
Yeah, cool. And so it's 3 advisor partners, including yourself, yeah?
No, so four advisor partners. 3 of us are client-facing. The other partner in the business is operational and sort of compliance and technically focused. So he's kind of the nothing gets in or out without having that really big check on quality control to make sure that we're always meeting all the criteria that we need to meet. And that's a really valuable thing to have in a business. And I think we're probably one of only a few that that have that, but we're really blessed to have it because, you know, we get so busy. So it's nice to have that extra check for quality as we go.
Sure. Okay, and cool. And you've got about, I think you mentioned about 700 active clients. Is that correct? And what do your clients typically look like?
Yeah, so across the four of us, Andy, who I talked about, does do some advice, but it's kind of on a set sort of level of clients, so he's not sort of bringing in new clients or anything like that. So across the business, we would have about 700. We typically look after small business in that professional sort of area. So we've got lots of small business as well as them looking after their family stuff and also their children's stuff. So we've got lots of intergenerational advice as well within the business where we've helped grandparents, parents and children. We've got a really long heritage. It's about going on 44 years soon. So it's typically they've come to us for one thing and we'll end up looking after their business and their personal stuff, and then as the kids grow up and things like that, we'll take that on as well.
Okay, cool. So yeah, and we're going to talk a bit more about the model for the younger clients too, but from you know, we obviously toured around recently on the AFA tour and got to chatting, and I understand that in your business, you guys, since you joined the business, have implemented a lot of change. Can you tell us a bit about the framework that you use in your business for how you actually go about that?
Yeah, so I think probably the biggest thing was just to probably set the scene a little bit, because whilst I was going around the States talking to all the advisors, it seemed that that was probably one of the biggest things that they connected to, was if they'd been in a business for a long time or they'd joined a business where they've had advisors that have, as partners that have been around for a long time, that was often the biggest struggle, was getting them to, you know, want to make some positive change. And I think in my case, that was definitely true. We had a business that was pretty, going along pretty well. It is, you know, fairly profitable. And I think for the guys, it was kind of, for me coming in as a new partner, it was then that big dramatic change where we had kind of another mouth to feed, I guess, and B, the way we've been doing things before necessarily isn't going to be the way that we take it forward. So the first thing I'd say is that it wasn't easy. I had to come up with a way to get each of my 3 business partners, and more importantly, the staff in the business, to want to come along, because people are so set in their ways, and in comes this bull at a gate, you know, trying to make all this crazy change really quickly. So the first step was around just getting everyone on board and trying to dig deep into what's important to them, so that I could understand where I could sort of drive them to make them want to make the change. And then from there, it was about going, okay, what are the big things we need to change? So for us, it was about capacity. We have lots of bums on seats, or enough bums on seats, I guess, but yet we still seem to be chasing our tail. So for me, it was kind of finding a way to say, well, if we're going to be able to grow, how do we grow if we seem to be chasing our tail on the existing businesses? So the first part of the framework was really pulling apart, you know, the machine, the business as a machine. So how do we do things? Why do we do things? And I think, you know, I talked about this as being another big thing that we always got back to, was why do we do things? It's because the way we've always done it. And, you know, everyone's got that issue, I think, in their business, where they sort of question things and then don't really know why they do it. So it was about sitting down as a group collectively, not just as partners, but with everyone, and just pulling apart that process. So it's a tedious exercise, but going through step by step what we do and why we do it, and the why is such an important part, because often sometimes you get to things and you don't know why. So that's where we go, okay, cool. Well then, if we don't know why, well, let's figure that out and sort of piece it back together in a way that's going to be more efficient, and it allows us to have more capacity so that we can take on new clients and help more people, because for me that's what it's about, being able to help as many people as possible. And if we can do that, then the rest will just follow, I believe. So that was probably the biggest part of it, and it was about making the time to work on the business, as opposed to just trying to grow it before we had the capacity to do it properly, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. And look, I think that's a struggle that everybody has, that, you know, making time to work on their business. How do you go about that personally, or do you have a framework for how you do it as a business?
With great difficulty. Look, I think it's really interesting. I think you just have to make the time. And I think if you can sit and take a look at, I don't know how many people on the line are ideas people, but I certainly am one of those. And I think you can have a million ideas a day, but if you don't focus on some really great things and do them properly, then you can kind of keep starting a whole bunch of things and not finishing them. So we've got a rule now that I'm only allowed to have 3 big projects a year, and we have to agree on them and work through them and sort of smash them out of the park before we continue. You just have to make time. So for us, it was about putting in. I've got 2 block-out times in my diary twice a week. It's on a Monday and a Friday. There's 2 reasons for that. It's sort of getting ready for the week and finishing off the week. But there's also a few hours in those times where it's working on the business, and not just in it, sort of trying to drive that. You know, and you've just got to put in that sweat equity as well. It's not about working from 9 till 5, as most people would know. But for me, you know, there's a couple of days a week where I've got to sort of sit and make some time at night where I'm in a quiet space, you know, in a nice environment where I can focus on those projects and sort of make them come to fruition. And then when you're in the office, you can then get the people involved that need to be involved, and sort of work on it from there. So it's not easy.
Yeah.
It's just about saying I'm going to commit to the time and making it, and not letting anything else get in the way of it.
I'm curious, Erin, about when you unpackaged the business and how things were going. Where did you find you saved the most time, and sort of what were you able to do? Was there big time savings that you ended up making in your process, and where were the biggest savings?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing we actually identified as the core problem was communication across ourselves. So how many people touched a file, who needed to touch a file. We have a bit of a weird setup where we're all open plan, but we've actually got sort of admin on one side and then there's a bit of a door to go through the other side. So we found ourselves walking back and forth a lot. So implementing things like Skype for Business, which most people, you know, have used for a really long time, but for us it's, you know, instead of getting up and walking across the room now, we can just put it into that, and everyone can see what's happened in that conversation because it all gets saved. So it's a really good way of sort of storing conversations. I think for us as well, it was too many touch points for different people. So we had power planner and admin working on application forms when really we only needed to have one side of the business, which is admin, working on forms. And why do we do it that way? Because we've just always done it that way. So it was kind of going, whose role is what, and what is the capability of that role, and what should they be doing? And then once we knew what that was, you kind of fit those capabilities to the people in those specific roles. And I think often we can do that in reverse, where we go, okay, what can you do well? Here's what. So we don't, like, here's what you'll get. So we don't often push people out of their comfort zones. So we kind of took the emotion out of it and went, okay, we've got, you know, 2 CSOs, we've got 1 admin, and then we've got 4 advisors and a power planner. What do each of those roles look like in an ideal world? And then how do we then pull that process and give each task to its relevant person according to the role that they need to do in the business? So that then freed up time for our power planner. For example, I think he's doing an extra something like 3 or 4 ROAs and 1 SOA a week to, you know, which he wasn't doing before, because he's now not touching a whole part of the process that he used to, just because it's the way we'd always done it. So I think for us it was about the biggest time saver or time creator was allowing that time to be freed up, which means we can see more people and get more done in a shorter amount of time. And that then frees up his time to do extra stuff on the, technical and compliance side with Andy, instead of it being, printing, binding, sorting out fact fund profiles and things like that. Just the little things that are quite simple tasks that can be done in a whole other area of the business. So basically, more time for clients, which is good.
Nice one.
And how did you map out, like, once you took the time to define your process, how did you actually map that out? Did you use some technology, or manual?
Yeah. So we have built it into OneNote at the moment. It's kind of a work in progress, because I don't know whether that's the best place to have it, but at the moment it works really well for us. Because with OneNote, you can sort of build it in. For those of you who haven't used it, you can build it in so you've got like little tabs down each side. So each part of our process is literally written so that, if you wanted, Nash, you could come in next week and do that CSO or advisor role. It's literally that detailed that it's step by step. How do we, from opening up the office in the morning to putting together applications step by step, to how we print out and present an SOA, to our advice process. So it's kind of there, and if anyone wants to go in, it's just an easy way for us to find things, because you click on the relevant advice area and inside there are all the key sort of things. So you can kind of click through and eventually get to what you need to, or the instructions that you need. We probably haven't really used a lot of technology in the business up until, we're starting to sort of look at all that stuff now. But I think there'll probably be a better way. And I'm actually open to suggestions on how other people have built their process documents, because I think there's lots of different tools out there which we've explored. But until we find the right one, that's really working for us. It's just about having access to it quickly and easily. And it's another time saver, because, again, people aren't going and asking, knocking on your door all day saying, oh, how do we do that again and how do we do this again? Because it's all there step by step. So if you're unsure, you can go and find it in a couple of clicks instead of taking someone out of their work zone that they're in.
Well, Erin, the short answer to wondering what else is out there is just hop on the Facebook group, XY Adviser, and there's already been a couple of discussions in that space, but you throw something out and you'll get an answer. You get about 10 options within a day. So and Ben's just thrown off Rike there, which I know a couple of people use, and there's work sorted. There's plenty. It's so many. It's so hard to choose. That's why the group's been so good in terms of going. You just let people form a consensus. You go, okay, well, 10 people like that one, so that's the decision made, as opposed to having to navigate everything yourself. So it's been bringing a bit of efficiency.
I think the other thing I'll just touch on is with the process is we've implemented a little system where if someone wants to change a process, so we've all agreed on it collectively, if someone wants to change it, it only happens in our team meeting, which happens on a Monday. We deal with it there, we discuss it there, and then the document's living and breathing. So the admin team have access to it, they can go and update it. So it's not a set and forget, it's literally updated every time we can find something or a better way to do things. So I think, and I encourage the team to do that. If you think that there's something better we can do or a better way we can do things, let's talk about it. The process doesn't have to be the process, and it could change, once a month, just a little tweak somewhere. But it's living and breathing, and it allows for that efficiency to grow and be better as new technology or ways of doing things sort of come to light.
Yeah. Look, that sounds like a great approach, and I think it's obviously important to constantly sort of iterate there. I just put up a link to Rike, which is the software that we use in our business, which is super helpful for mapping processes and you can step by step. You can add in YouTube clips and process map all your steps. I just, before I turn it over to Adrian to ask a couple more questions, I just want to talk a bit about the work, because I know that you've sort of been pushing more since you joined into the business in working in the younger client space. So I'm keen to just discuss, how you approach that and what sort of things you're doing in that space to work with the Gen Y and the younger clients.
Yeah. I think the answer to the end outcomes can often be not too, dissimilar. So you get to the same kind of things, but just in a different way. So what I'm finding with the younger generation is that they're just less interested. It's different. Oh God, it's so hard because sometimes you get them coming in and they've been picking their own stocks and doing all this really funky stuff. But most of them just want a plan and a strategy, and they're not thinking about superannuation. They don't really know too much about insurance. Most of them, most people that I start with that haven't had anything to do with an advisor will talk about, oh yeah, I've got insurance for my car, for my house, for all that sort of stuff, for my phone. But they kind of don't have a good grasp on, protecting their own income or, fending for them, they're helping their family if they were sick or any of that sort of stuff. So we're very whiteboard eccentric. And we basically map out the journey on a whiteboard, focusing on the earlier years. So we focus on short-term goals with a long-term end outcome. We talk about financial freedom, which is working because you want to, not because you have to. So superannuation is a really dirty word in our business because it sounds sucky. It's not interesting. It's really boring. Young people don't like it. They don't understand a lot about it until you go through that sort of education process. We liken it to, we talk about how much money they save. We ask them, we tell them they're saving 9.5% a year, and they're like, what are you talking about? And then that's sort of what starts to then get them excited about, oh, okay, that actually is my money and I do have a say in what happens with it. And we've got this thing, it's called a Grow, Protect, Prosper roadmap. So it's kind of just a one page. It's sort of, you split the screen into four spots. And we really focus on the first box first, which is it's the goal setting. It's letting them dream. It's talking about what's important to them, where they're headed. And if you can generate enough excitement in that part, which is like most clients, it's just talking about different things because they're at a different stage, then the other stuff just kind of flows through. And we've just found we've had really great success, not only in them being really excited when they leave, but they're making really drastic changes quite quickly. I had a young couple that I've been working with, and the lady was more into, the finances and managing money and being across and in control of things. And he really wasn't, so he actually didn't want to come and see me. It was almost like he was a bit embarrassed of his own situation. So she came on her own first, and then eventually we got him in. And within a month, he's just completely changed. And it was purely just by talking about, what is important to you? What do you love? Forget this. It's super's gonna happen later, but let's focus on, well, how old do you want to be when you want financial freedom? And they're like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. So then it's about building realistic goals around creating financial freedom. Still working, because you don't stop. A lot of people don't just stop and sit around. They just can have the choice if they want to. So that's probably the biggest focus, and I think a good draw card for thinking about the future is it's not when we're going to be stopping and old, which is the thought that they get when they hear super. They more think about positive goals and driving that towards financial freedom.
Well, there's a really good question from Dylan there that we will jump into shortly. But while we're on that engagement piece, you've talked about obviously that grow, that template that you use. Are there any other ways that you engage that generation and get them sort of is there, in terms of, and we can extend this to like social media, for example, or other channels that you're using to get them involved and excited about it?
Social media is just about to start for us, so we're probably a little bit behind on that 8 ball, just purely because you know, of the long heritage of the business. And I think, you know, you talk to Tim, Gary and Andy, and they're like, oh, we don't really know or understand sort of how we make that work. And so we've sort of done a lot of, you know, work around where we're going to start. So we're just sort of starting to dip our toe in the water on that side. But one of the big things we've just created was a series of client videos. And the client videos are based around individual clients that tell their story about what they do in their businesses. And we've done it across lots of different types of demographics, from, you know, the young entrepreneur right through to the intergenerational family who are farmers and have passed down to the kids. We've got a young cyclist, and she, you know, she's told her story. So it's all about them in their own environments. It's got nothing to do with what GCA did for them or the great work that we did. It's more their success through their own story and in their own business and in the life that they've created for themselves. And that's a really good marketing tool for us, because depending on who's looking, they'll find the one that's most relevant to them. So they can connect to a story instead of connecting to a process. And that's been a really valuable exercise for us. And as we start to dip our toe into the social media waters, a lot of those will get used, because we'll continue to do a couple of those a year. So we'll start to use those to sort of, I guess, you know, on a one-to-many approach. And that's where I see the value of social media, is being able to educate, you know, the masses. You might not be able to get every one of them in front of you, but there's certainly a lot of work that we can do to give back and make sure that people are at least furthering their financial literacy and understand why it's important to at least have some plans to for. Yeah, so we haven't, yeah, we're a bit behind on that one, but we're getting there. We're getting there. Yeah.
All right.
And if anyone hasn't seen those videos that Erin put together, they are amazing. I'm just popping the link to her website in the chat box here, and jump on and check them out. Erin's used a company based out of Brisbane. Which what was the company that you guys used, Erin?
Little Tokyo. Which
Little
one?
Tokyo. So yeah, amazing, and hearing the client stories, but with, you know, super high production values. It's they've come out really well, and I think tell the story quite well. I'm just keen, before I pass it over to Paddy, and for anyone watching in as well, if you guys have got any questions, we're going to get to questions from the group in a sec, so feel free to type them into the chat box on the side there. But I just wanted to finish off with, like, how you approach working with these younger clients. Like, given that your business probably had more focus on the older generations, what have you found like were the biggest learnings for you in going down that path?
I think at the start, and being sort of relatively fresh, you know, you understand the advice process, but actually putting that into practicality can be, you know, pretty hard at the start as you sort of find your feet. I think a couple of the young ones we might have worked, or I might have worked with at the start, I probably wasn't engaging them in the right way in terms of, you know, really sitting back and going, well, what are they going to want to get out of this? Because you instantly revert to the way we've always done things, so that process. So it was just about taking a completely fresh approach and saying, what are they going to want? What are they going to want? And I'm one of them. So what do I want? Like, what do I find exciting? And, you know, the interesting thing about financial advice is that people don't really find it exciting if they've never done it, or they've never engaged with someone where they've been able to have a really great conversation. So I think just learning to sort of get on their level and having that empathy and, you know, being able to put yourself in their shoes and quickly get around where they're wanting to head and do it as if you were them, I guess. So I had a couple that, you know, probably fell off the perch, you know, because I followed a process instead of, you know, mixing that up a bit. The second biggest learning, and this is a positive one, is that like most businesses, we have a massive opportunity in our business to work with clients' children. And, you know, so it was about me going, instead of sort of going out and, you know, hunting for new ones, we've done a bit of a mix of both, but why not get them from the people that we've worked with for years, that know what the value is, that are now living that, you know, dream of financial freedom, and have those young children, and so they're our biggest advocates. So I think it's about not making it too hard for yourself, and identifying where the opportunities are from within the business as well. I think the other thing that I did that had really big success was working within different communities. So I got involved with a group called It Starts With Us, and the lady that runs it is a teacher, and she just started running these events for women who were mums or mums and working, but they were feeling pretty lonely and uninspired and sort of in their roles, so they would get together, and she'd run these really cool uplifting style events for women, and just getting out and speaking on really simple terms, like educating people around, you know, for in this particular instance, it was, you know, women being mums, stopping work, what that means, some of the little tweaks you can make, you know, to make a really big difference in your future. And those are sort of the long burning ones, but over time, I've probably had about 10 of those women from that group come and see me with their husbands and young families to get advice when a trigger has happened in their brain where they've said, oh, I remember, and Erin talked about that on that day. So they've made contact with the office. So I think the other big learning is just to give time and give back, because again, that one-to-many approach can be really valuable for them, but also valuable for you as a business. So 1 hour of time can create, you know, 10, in this case, new ongoing service, you know, in it for the long journey clients with us. Yeah.
Well, I know, Ben's had some great success doing workshops and getting out on the sort of one-to-many format in that sense. The angle, I'm going to get into Dylan's question here, because it's sort of, there's a lot of practices out there that are either working off a book of clients that's come from somewhere, or they're in your position where they're a younger advisor that's come into a large a practice that's been around for a while. Dylan wants to know how you've been managing that sort of, I guess, around focusing on the younger clients, but how do you sort of reconcile that with the 55 to 75 age bracket, the older generation that come with that existing client base?
This is a good one. So this is a hard one for me to answer, because I think I've probably got a bit of a different structure than a lot of other businesses. We don't have our own books. We have shareholding in the practice. So, and you're a client of GCA, so which works really well. So, yeah, although I've sort of taken on some of those, they generally predominantly do work with the appropriate, you know, demographic, because we've got those advisors through the ages. So we've got 70, you know, 45, 35, and then me at 32. So, yeah, it is tough. I've sort of tended to look after the younger ones more so. So sorry, ask me that question again so I can just.
So I guess it's more like, and Dylan can jump in and elaborate a bit more, but I'm getting the impression that he's talking about just the requirement to sort of have to deal with both demographics and how to adjust. If you've set yourself up to sort of focus on the younger people, all of a sudden you get someone that just pops in and they're 55 plus, doesn't get passed on to the older advisors in the practice. Or do you still deal with them, and how do you adjust for that?
So if, for example, a centre of influence that we work with has referred a client, referred it specifically to me, then yes, absolutely, you know, you want to work with them. And I think, sorry, was it Dylan? Was it Dylan?
Yeah.
Dylan, I think it goes back to, or the way that I approach that is, with empathy. And I don't know, everyone sort of has a different little definition for empathy, but it really is about putting yourself in their shoes. So I think it doesn't really matter how old the clients are, if you can take that approach and think about that at the end of the day, a lot of the strategies that you do for people can often be not too dissimilar. It's just using their own life, but they're going to need things like structuring for their superannuation investments. They're going to then need to protect that. They're going to want to set some goals. You're going to want to track to those, and there might be things along the way that you want to sort of take into account. So it's more just connecting with them at their level and thinking about they are who they are and trying to connect with them in the first few minutes to think, okay, what would I do if I was in their shoes? What would I want? How would I be feeling? And if you can connect on that level, then you can kind of get there, I think.
Well, Dylan's just jumped in and sort of drawn it back to the marketing. So in terms of, I guess, if you're playing around with a practice's branding to link it more and the messaging you're putting out there to younger generation, is there an issue? Have you noticed any issues with the older generation relating to it and things like that?
Yeah. The short answer is no. But I do get that because it was a big concern that we had at the outset. I think our process that we go on with clients is the journey, and that basically starts as soon as you start, earning money, wanting to know what to do with it. And that can happen, from when we're 14 years old. So obviously we're not seeing clients when they're 14, but it's about that. So for our older clients, I think for them, I don't know, we haven't really noticed an issue because I think they just understand that who we are, what we do, and if they know the process is the journey from the time you start right through to the time you end, then of course we need to market in different ways to different demographics. I think if you've got some good reporting, like ways to report, you can kind of focus different marketing to the different age groups. But also one benefit to us of marketing towards the younger demographic to our entire client base is that, again, it's helped those older clients go, oh, I've got kids. That's exactly what they're worried about at the moment. So, it's allowed us to then get communicating with clients that might not be getting those marketing or getting that marketing because they're not on, they're not on our list yet, but their parents are. So, I haven't really had an issue, but I'm happy if you've had a specific instance that, you've had that you wanted to elaborate on, I'm more than happy to sort of work through that.
Yeah, Dylan's just said that, they haven't had pullback either. Just focusing on like a robust advice process in general that sort of deals with any type of client that comes in. Just to be the go.
Erin, just to jump in on it, I wondered, how do you find it working with younger clients, older clients, and business owner clients as well? How do you find in terms of driving? Because obviously you're big on efficiencies, but how do you manage the doing things efficiently and having that process that you talked about, but then having clients that might look quite different?
Yeah, so I think, they do come up a lot, where, you've got to kind of take, again, it's just kind of stepping into each of their shoes. But I think for us, the beauty that we have is the four of us inside the business are really different in terms of our skill sets and things like that. So we do have, and I know everyone doesn't have this, but for those that do, never be afraid to get someone else involved. If you think that something's a bit different or that you think that they might connect with a different person. Now, it's different when you're running your own book. I do understand that because there's a bit more of a, own your own client base and sort of drive your own revenue. But we just need to, we get everyone involved. If something's different or they're different or they've got a different need that's a bit weird and wonderful, which often you can get, it's just about connecting them with the right person in the business. And if we need to do it as a joint, then we do it as a joint. For those that don't have that, it's a tough one, but I think you've just got to sort of go away. Like, not everyone wants the answers straight away. So it's about then going, I'm just going to take a step back from that specific person or situation or scenario, and then go away and sort of figure it out and come back to them. If it's a personality thing, I think for those of you on that were on the roadshow, if it's a personality thing, it ain't going to work. I mean, some people just hate your guts. They just do. They don't think you're valuable, and they're not going to want to go along with you. So in that instance, you kind of like, if you're this much trouble now, there's no point. So a big learning from me, because I tried to hang on to quite a few of these in my early days of it, or I'm still in my early days, but the very early days. And they just turn out to be nightmares. So learn how to cut and run when you know inside that they're just not going to be a good fit.
Yeah, no, I think that's sage advice.
Yeah.
Ray mentioned he's interested in the one-to-many, and he's asking if you thought about doing it from a revenue standpoint. I know Ben would have something to say about that because he charges for his workshops. Is that something you've considered?
I haven't as yet, and I think it'll be something sort of down the track that I have thought about. I think at the outset, it's more people that have asked me to come along and do things and sort of contribute in that way. So I guess after you do a few and you realise just how valuable it can be, for the people that are there in that particular audience, if you position it towards the audience you're speaking to, then yeah, absolutely. I think, it's your time, right? And you're giving people some really valuable things to think about and good takeaways. So they might go away and do a few of those things that you've talked about that day, just from a general perspective, like just at least take a look at their cash flow or check out, do the super consolidation or, those little things that people let go on for years and years and years that they've never really understood or know about. So I think from a workshop perspective, I've never really run it workshop style. It's more just been speaking to a particular audience and doing Q&A and things like that. But there's absolute value in it. And I think, the more that we continue to do in the business, we'll have to, because it is time out of the day. There's also the other side of that argument that you go, though, you can get a lot out of it. So the sort of return comes, from the giving back. So you just got to put that, I think it's a fine line. Yeah,
great. Well, that's... I'd suggest you have a chat to Benny offline about how his experience. Because it's been working really well, from my understanding. We've taken up everyone's time, and I hope everyone's gotten something great out of this. We thank Erin for sharing her experience and some of the things she's doing in her practice, and some great takeouts from that. We might just drop in, Jack, if you want to just let everyone know. We got next week's sorted, our event, and the next webinar. So we've got Jade Ely. So Jade's a young advisor. He's taken over a large practice, and he's taken on a couple of people over in the Philippines, and he's had a great experience in doing that. And he's just recently added on another person. He's been over there, so really good insight into how that's done, what it's like, whether it's worth it. So everyone tune in for that. And again, to everyone in Sydney, what's that, Erin?
Good hair, best haircut in the industry.
He's got some good hair. So he does have great hair. It's almost as good as Ben's beard. The other thing is, everyone in Sydney, the event's on next week. There's still a couple of spots. So, we'd love to have you there. It's always good, a few beers and catch up with everyone. Thanks to AIA. We can't do this without you. And we're looking forward to, if anyone has any other questions, post them on Facebook. Erin, I believe, will jump on and answer them.
Yeah, absolutely.
When she gets a chance, Francis, I'm sure she's got some client things to get to, but don't be shy to follow up with her. What's that?
I said I've always got time for that. Happy to share on Facebook, but give anyone my details if they want, to see anything of the things we're doing. So yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, Erin. That's the XY spirit. Well, this is from all of us here. We'll catch you next week and enjoy the rest of the week.
See you guys. Thanks, Erin.
Yeah.